Get started this evening for our webinar, Setting the Course for TrueNorth. So thank you all for joining us this evening. We have a few housekeeping details to go over. This webinar will be recorded and we will send it out soon to all attendees and registrants. You may submit any questions that you have at any time through the chat feature, which can be found on the lower right-hand corner of your screen in that panel. And then we will answer those questions at the end of the webinar or as appropriate. And if you do have any additional questions or support that is needed after the webinar, feel free to contact me, Kristen Edmonds, at kedmonds@ccinstitute.org or at 303-368-6736. So I'm Kristen Edmonds. I'm the Coaches Coordinator here at CCI, and joining me this evening is Dr. James Dubinsky, who is our Chief Executive Officer. A few objectives for the presentation this evening. We will review the different components of the TrueNorth Award application, and we will provide an overview of the evaluation process, and we will discuss any common questions related to completing the TrueNorth application. So just to give you a quick overview of the details that we will go through today, this is a breakdown of the TrueNorth application. It starts with workforce statistics covering 20 points. We have 2 letters of endorsements totaling at 10 points. We have rewards and recognition that is for 30 points. And then we have impact of certification worth 40 points. And all these come together for the total of 100 points for the application process. So now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. James Dubinsky to go through each of those sections in a little more detail.
All right, thanks, Kristen. So one of the sections of the award, which many applicants find quite challenging, is this calculation. So the workforce statistics is 20 points of the total of 100 that are available for the scoring. For the sake of this calculation, we advise you to get started early. Our advice is to drop a roster of all of the nurses that work in the department that is going to be the subject of the application. When you do that, mind you, we are only talking about the nurses that are eligible. So we have an example up on the board, but the calculation is only the number of nurses that are eligible for either CNOR or CSSM, and then it comes a calculation and we come down to percentage. In this example, they've done a tally and they've come to 26 CNORs and 1 CSSM in the work area. They have a total of 27 certified nurses. They also have accounted for all the nurses that work in the department. So the total number eligible, they've counted up 32. So there are 5 additional nurses who could be eligible for CNOR or CSSM, but have not yet taken and passed the exam. So the calculation is 27 divided by 32. That comes out to 0.84 multiplied by 100. 84% of the eligible staff are certified. That is the number that you'll place onto your form. And if there are any questions, either Kristen or I can help with that calculation. And all that we're asking for is a calculation done at a point in time. You only have to do the calculation once. There's no need to redo it. If it's not to your advantage to do it the day you submit your application, just do the calculation, have the number, keep your list of your certificates, and that's a number that you would enter. So please remember, if you have nurses on staff that are not eligible yet to take the certification exam, they do not count in the total. So that's the important part. We're more than glad to help you to do the calculation. And let's move on to the next slide. We are now going to go through the categories And I'm going to give you a little bit more information about each of these areas on the application. So the letters of endorsement, they're very straightforward, but we do have a bit of advice for you. Our advice is to begin talking right now to the people that you will need to do these letters. And you can see we give you the scoring rubric that the judge is going to use. We give you that in advance. So there are things that you can see in the column where we rate for 5 points. In this letter, there are certain areas that you need to cover. The letter of endorsement, whether from the CNO or the manager, the director of surgical services, has to mention specific support of certification. It must be evident. Specific examples are cited, and it should be obvious, but we'll just remind you, the letter is free of grammar, spelling, punctuation errors, and it is signed with an original signature. Our advice is to talk to these people early, tell them that you intend to submit the award, and if at all possible, help them with the letter. If you leave them completely to their own devices, frequently what we'll find, they may write a very nice letter, but it's a bit generic and it doesn't cover these areas. The judges, they're going to just stick to the rubric, read down the letter. If you covered the essential elements, you'll get your 5 points per letter. I can tell you in a competition which is so competitive as we have for the TrueNorth Award, these points are among the easier ones to earn, and it would be a shame to lose a couple points here and there, which could affect your standing for the award. It would be a shame to lose points over something that's relatively straightforward. So talk to them early, help them with the letter. We have applicants who actually write out the body of the letter and kind of coach them along, work with the administrative assistant. It is in your own best interest to pay attention here, even though not a large amount of points. Pay attention here and you can get your 10 points for the letters of endorsement. So the next category is rewards and recognition. This is the breakdown of the points that are awarded in this category. It's a total of 30 points and a couple pointers here. We're going to give you more specific examples in each of these categories, but the scoring rubric, which we will give you, you can basically check off the list. You need somewhere in your write-up, you need to mention all of these things that are mentioned in the scoring rubric. These are the larger categories. The other thing that I can tell you is often the section E of rewards and recognition does not get covered well. That is the category, if you cannot figure out a place where something fits and it's a significant achievement, use section E, other achievements, here. The other point is, if you read down the scoring rubric and you don't have something that fits in a given category, there is no need to address it. To say, we believe strongly in this thing, we feel, there should be a program and that's a great idea, and you don't actually have the program, you do not need to comment on it. The judges, unless they see clear evidence somewhere, they're not going to award you points. So saying that you endorse that but you don't have it is not going to help. So these are the major categories here. So now some other breakdown, some other detail here. So category 3A, evidence of recognition. We give you a number of examples here. It's very simple. Look at the scoring rubric, and if you have those activities, simply mention them in your narrative. You will see in this category, you have 500 words to cover all of these. Anything you don't mention, even if you're doing it, if it's not noted somewhere, the judges can't give you points. There must be documentation somewhere. This is a 500 word limit, and we do hold to that. It's truncated at 500 words. If you don't speak to it, and you hit 500 words, anything after word 500 is not going to count. The judges will never see it. So you have a 500 word limit. Here's our advice. Read the scoring rubric, and it says, is there evidence of a newsletter, posters that recognize nurses for achievements, certified nurses and their achievements, facility sponsored meals or treats or snacks or breakfast, etc., that recognizes certified nurses. Just make note of it. If you wish to use bullet points, it does not necessarily have to be a narrative. That's a very concise way to present material. So consider the use of bullet points. However you decide to do this, I would first write it out in Microsoft Word, a word processing software. Check the spelling, check the punctuation, do the word count, carefully craft it, revise it as needed, and then you can cut and paste that into the application. I would not type directly into the application. These are some of the examples. They are not all of the examples. A well-crafted application will be carefully checked off against the scoring rubric. And if you're doing those things, you have those achievements, you actually have a newsletter, etc., make sure that you document that somewhere. The most straightforward way to do it would be in the block for category 3. This is not an all-inclusive list. There's other activities, so please check the scoring rubric. 3B, organizational recognition. Again, 500 word limit. Here you will describe facility programs that support certified nurses. Clinical ladders, if you give a pay raise or bonus for certification, recertification, it's worth points toward the clinical ladder. Please note that. You do not, it's not required that someone gets a pay raise when they get certified. But if that's worth points toward the clinical ladder and it's a big segment, you could cite examples of, certification is required for CN3 on the ladder, and CN3 then is a pay raise of 2%. Just give that information, even if it's not a direct pay raise. These are 3 examples. There are 7 or 8 examples in the scoring rubric. Again, if you don't have the program, there's no need to waste your word count to say something like, we fully endorse the idea of a clinical ladder, but we're not allowed to have one at this facility. We do think that's a worthwhile idea. To cut to the chase there, that means that you don't have a clinical ladder. Spend your word count somewhere else. Saying that you think it's a great idea, but you don't have one, will not get you any points. All right, category 3C, perioperative department recognition. Again, 7 points. In the scoring rubric, you'll find 7 or 8 activities, perhaps more. Each one of those is essentially worth 7 points. When the judges use the scoring rubric, they just work their way down the rubric, and in your 500 word narrative, if you note that you have, you participate in Take Two program, you hold the CCI Strong recognition, you have a perioperative journal club, just state it. And it can be as simple as a bullet point that says, we have 10 nurses in the Take Two program, and we started that on April 5th of 18, done. You'll get credit for the Take Two program. And again, check against the scoring rubric. 3D, demonstration of expertise by certificates. And Kristen, I may need your help here. Um, Please note that there's a time limit here. So Kristen, could I ask, what is the time period where they can note their achievements? Do we say 3 years or 5 years?
It's 3 years, so back to 2015 for this year.
Okay, so this would be activities for the calendar year 15, 16, and 17, Kristen?
Mm-hmm. That's correct.
Okay, thank you. So on your application, you will need to document, again, 500-word limit for activities, achievements by certified nurses in the calendar year 15, 16, and 17. So a couple notes. Please make sure that we can make the connection. If Gene Smith, CNOR CSSM, published an article in the year 2015 in the AON Journal, just state that. Give us the title, brief citation, that's all you need. Telling us about certain nurses that are not certified in their achievements will not earn you points. So a bit of a history taking here, good record keeping, but remember it's the year 15, 16, and 17. Anything outside of that parameter, great things that you did in 2012, they will not earn you points. These are examples, again, in the scoring rubric, there are additional examples. 3E, this is an important category. If you've gone through the scoring rubric, you have achievements that don't fit in these other categories, please utilize category 3E. This sadly is is one that doesn't get fully utilized. We have many applications where they make no comment here. If you have anything that doesn't fit, this is the place to use it, or you just simply ran out of room in your other spaces, you can catch it here. It's a very wise way to address this. So when in doubt, use this category wisely. If you have something significant, there's some doubt about whether you'll get points for it, put it in here. Again, 500-word limit. It is 4 points, and this one frequently goes unclaimed. There, we see many applications where they just plain don't document here, and it is 4 points. So this is the single largest part of this application. This is the section that's worth 40 points, the impact of certification. This is the question we want you to answer in a narrative. If this, for those of you who are familiar with the ANCC Magnet program, if these sorts of questions and these requests for documentation, if these appear similar to what you document for the Magnet program, that is not a coincidence. So if you follow that line of reasoning in your documentation, it'll be helpful. We want you to answer directly this question. How are certified nurses applying their knowledge and expertise to affect positive change in patient and nursing outcomes? Let's talk more about what that looks like and give you a little bit more detail. This section has a 1,000-word limit. So we want to know how certification, the work of certified nurses, how that has produced positive change. We want specific examples. And the emphasis should be on measurable outcomes. So if you say something like, you know, the nurses serve on the Professional Development Council, we have 4 representatives. That's a great thing. What we want to know is, what did that group do? What are their achievements? If you were able, if the work of that group, which includes certified nurses from the operating room, if you were able to, in a 3-year period, increase the ratio of certified nurses in the hospital by 20%, that's what we want. Often the difference here in how many points will be awarded in this category are those that can cite specific examples. The judges love numbers, ratios, percentages, increases. They love that. A decrease in the infection rate because you have certified nurses that serve on the infection control committee, cost savings, certified nurses worked on the value-based purchasing committee or the capital equipment purchasing committee, and they were able to save $100,000 in consumable supplies last year. Those are examples. Trends and comparisons to external, internal benchmarks will help to substantiate that. Use good, reliable sources. If you were to cite a benchmark, say from the ANCC Magnet program, that's, I'm just throwing out a number, that said 50% in magnet facilities, 50% of the nurses are certified. In your facilities at 70%, you could rightfully say that your facility exceeds the magnet benchmark by 20%. Those are the sorts of things that will score well in this category. And now I'm going to turn it over to Kristen, and she will go over more about the application process.
Thank you, Jim. So some great details there. All of this information, just for your reference, can be found on the CCI website. So once you've had a chance to kind of review mentally where you're at and you're ready to apply for this TrueNorth Award, first step you will do is go in and review those application instructions. Those are found both on the CCI website as well as on the application. The first couple pages will have instructions as well. So it'll be easy to read those. The next step would be to gather those letters of support that we mentioned. So the letter from the chief nursing officer, as well as the director and manager of surgical services. And then once you have those and kind of organized everything, I know Jim mentioned it's best to kind of start in a Word document to get your thoughts collected and items organized. You will complete the online application. So again, just to note with Jim's previous mention that we do have these activities that will be accounted for in your application must be completed after January 1st, 2015. So for the application, evaluation, and score reporting, we do have an independent selection committee that is appointed by the president of the CCI Board of Directors that reviews all the applications. So the winner will be announced in January of 2019 once those committees have had a chance to review the application submitted. And then we do offer score report and feedback sessions if you are interested for those interested in seeing how their application was scored in more specific details. So a few important dates to know. We do have the online application that will open on October 15th. So we'll make sure to include that link in the follow-up of the recording that will be sent out of this webinar. All nominations must be submitted by December 1st, 2018. And any incomplete or partial submissions will not be accepted. So those must be completed applications for those to get reviewed by the TrueNorth committee. And then as mentioned, we will announce a winner in January of 2019. So we do have a TrueNorth homepage on our CCI website, and that has a lot of helpful resources for you there. That will include the application link, which will open October 15th, as mentioned. We also have the application instructions and references to all the scoring rubrics for each of those categories that Jim just went through in detail. We have an application frequently asked questions form to give a little more insight to some of those commonly asked questions you may have. We do have a link to this recording. We'll have that up at the end of the webinar. And then we also have several features on our CCI blog. If you look for hospital highlights on the CCI blog, there are several that highlight TrueNorth winners from previous years, as well as some runner-ups who had some very impressive applications as well. And as mentioned in the beginning of the webinar, we are here to help. So if there's any questions that you may come up with after this webinar, or if your staff, if there's another team member that's submitting the application, feel free to give us a call at 303-368-6736 or email me directly at kedmonds@ccinstitute.org. And now we will open up to see if there are any questions for attendees on the line.
And Kristen, if I could make one more point.
Absolutely.
On letters of endorsement, the second letter, it may be the structure of your facility that the director of surgery is a surgeon. It could be a physician surgeon. It is not required that the letter come from a nurse. And it's possible that the second letter, that's only the second letter. You will need a letter from your senior nurse executive, CNO. But the second letter, we sometimes get this question, it's not a nurse. The director of surgery is a general surgeon. That's fine for that letter. Does not necessarily have to be a nurse for the second letter. And that varies by facility.
Thank you for that insight, Jim. We'll give them another minute here to see if we have any questions come through, but it sounds like we may have answered everything with that bit of information. Alrighty, everyone. Well, we'll let you get on with your evening and on with your night and back to dinner or whatever you're busy doing. So again, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to CCI staff, as we're happy to help and help you submit a successful application. So thank you for everything, Jim, and thanks everyone for joining us.
Right. Thank you, Kristen, and thanks for the attendees. Good night.
Good night.